In male psychology, unconditional female devotion is frequently interpreted not as love, but as confirmation of his inherent superiority, eliminating any perceived need for reciprocal effort. Many women, aiming to embody the ideal partner, nurturing, attentive, and supportive, consistently invest profound emotional and practical resources into their male partners. They inspire, assist in overcoming adversities, and meticulously cultivate a comfortable home environment. Despite these substantial, often Herculean efforts, the outcome frequently manifests as profound disappointment. The partner either withdraws into emotional detachment or escalates a barrage of grievances, implying a perpetual insufficiency of all contributions. This pattern is not coincidental. It represents a deeply ingrained relational error that systematically erodes the very foundations of even genuinely affectionate partnerships. The critical question arises: why do unwavering devotion and a readiness to support contrary to expectation lead to a detrimental rather than strengthening effect on the bond? The explanation resides within a subtle, often unrecognized psychological dynamic that progressively diminishes the woman's perceived value in the man's eyes, causing him to internalize her consistent care as an inherent, unconditional entitlement. Consequently, the woman becomes ensnared in a paradoxical cycle where her self-sacrifice inadvertently erodes her significance, while the man adopts a consumerist mentality, perpetually evaluating for a superior alternative. This constitutes a detrimental feedback loop from which an exit strategy is imperative to prevent the complete erosion of one's intrinsic self-worth. The fundamental genesis of this pervasive issue lies in an erroneous relational strategy, deeply ingrained within the subconscious frameworks of numerous women. From early childhood, girls are socialized with the directive that exhibiting goodness equates to pleasing others, conforming to external expectations, and subordinating personal desires. This socio-cultural conditioning establishes a blueprint for future relational behavior. This ingrained behavioral model, when transferred into adult relationships, solidifies a core belief that merely becoming sufficiently nurturing, aesthetically pleasing, domestically proficient, and accommodating will inherently compel a man to desire a lasting partnership. Consequently, women often envelop their partners with comprehensive attention, preemptively anticipate their needs and desires, and meticulously construct an idealized relational environment, expecting reciprocal gratitude and mutual investment. However, the lived reality frequently proves to be harshly discordant with these expectations. Their diligent efforts are not merely undervalued, they are systematically perceived as an automatic, unquestionable entitlement. The male partner consequently experiences no intrinsic motivation to exert reciprocal effort, as the existing relational dynamic already provides optimal comfort and satisfaction without his active contribution. From his perspective, the imperative for reciprocal giving is absent. A direct correlation exists: the more a woman assimilates into the man's life, neglecting her personal boundaries and intrinsic needs, the more profoundly she diminishes the perceived value of her own contributions. Her endeavors thus cease to be recognized as exceptional or noteworthy. She expends maximal effort, endures personal inconvenience, and strives for an unattainable ideal, yet often receives only apathy, and in some instances, overt irritation. This often prompts a misdirected compensatory response, where she perceives a need to intensify her efforts further, inadvertently reinforcing the inverse relationship between her giving and the perceived value of her labor. The psychological frameworks governing male and female perceptions of effort investment within relationships diverge significantly. A woman typically operates under the assumption that her nurturing and steadfast devotion will inherently fortify the emotional bond and deepen affection. She genuinely believes in a direct proportionality. Increased actions on her part will directly translate into heightened appreciation from her partner. Conversely, male psychology often operates under distinct principles concerning relational investment. A man frequently interprets a woman's comprehensive self-sacrifice and unwavering dedication as objective validation of his own exceptional qualities or desirability. This behavioral pattern functions as a signal to him, confirming his perceived high value, such that another individual is willing to expend extraordinary effort for his benefit. Consequently, he perceives no intrinsic imperative to reciprocate these efforts. Given that care and attention are delivered unconditionally and without any prerequisite from his side, the cumulative effect leaves the woman feeling profoundly undervalued and unappreciated. In a self-defeating cycle, she intensifies her efforts, hoping this amplification will finally compel the man to acknowledge her sacrifices. Yet, a direct inverse correlation frequently emerges. An increase in the woman's active contributions correlates with a progressive increase in the man's passive disengagement. While her desire is to be loved authentically for her inherent self, a man's perception of relational value is often predicated on the woman's perceived unavailability and the degree of personal investment he is required to exert. If he is not actively investing personal effort, he intrinsically assigns less value to the relationship itself. A significant proportion of men, rather than pursuing reciprocity, simply capitalize on the advantageous circumstances presented. They habituate to the woman's autonomous initiative in all matters, leading to a cessation of perceiving her actions as anything exceptional or noteworthy. A man inherently values the woman for whom he is compelled to exert effort and overcome challenges. If he perceives that she does not require active pursuit or ongoing retention efforts, his engagement naturally diminishes into complacency. His intrinsic value system prioritizes that which demands effort, rather than that which is bestowed without cost or prerequisite. When a woman consistently assumes the entirety of the emotional labor within a relationship, the man progressively normalizes this dynamic. He ceases to perceive her as an autonomous individual deserving of consideration, and instead categorizes her as a convenient, utilitarian component of his personal existence. This underscores the critical importance of not entirely dissipating oneself, but rather deliberately cultivating a relational space that necessitates active engagement and contribution from the male partner. This is not a manipulative strategy, but a fundamental psychological principle. Individuals inherently value more profoundly that which they have personally invested in. Should a woman consistently initiate communication, provide care, and organize leisure activities, she inadvertently assumes a leadership role within the relational dynamic. The man, perceiving no requirement for his active participation, consequently withdraws into a state of passivity. This imbalance systematically erodes relational equilibrium, ultimately leaving the woman in a state of profound emotional solitude. To mitigate this common error, it is crucial to embrace the willingness to allow the male partner to initiate actions and express agency. If his interest is genuinely profound, he will naturally exhibit a desire to invest his own efforts. Conversely, if such initiative is absent, it signifies a superficial initial interest, rendering such a relationship devoid of sustainable long-term prospects. Healthy relationships are characterized by an inherent equilibrium, wherein both partners actively invest in the relationship and demonstrate mutual interest. The male partner must perceive the woman as an intrinsic value, not merely a convenient source of comfort or utility. A woman is not obligated to earn love and attention through performative actions or constant demonstrations of worth. Authentic affection is predicated not on sacrificial acts, but on mutual respect, genuine interest, and a shared desire for companionship. A man invariably detects a woman's fear of loss, which subtly confers upon him an implicit sense of power and control. However, upon her realization and embodiment of self-sufficiency, his perception and treatment of her undergo a fundamental shift. When a man comprehends that a woman intrinsically values herself, he recognizes that a purely consumptive approach to the relationship will be neither tolerated nor successful. In such circumstances, he will either endeavor to meet her standards of respect and reciprocity, or he will disengage from the relationship. In the latter scenario, the woman sustains no genuine loss. Rather, she liberates space for a more compatible and deserving partner. Frequently, in such unbalanced dynamics, the man may even develop irritation, as excessively convenient relationships inherently deprive him of the challenge and excitement often associated with courtship and maintenance. He experiences no intrinsic need to actively pursue the woman or earn her attention, since these elements are already unconditionally provided. Should the woman fail to intervene and alter this dynamic, She risks not only the erosion of the man's respect, but also a significant diminution of her own self-dignity. She will persist in her giving until complete emotional and physical exhaustion, while he will never perceive her as the individual truly worthy of his dedicated efforts. A man values not the woman who performs every service for him, but rather the woman for whom he is personally willing to undertake self-improvement and surmount obstacles. Lacking the imperative to exert effort, he begins to perceive the woman not as an equal partner, but as a convenient, supplementary component within his life structure. For a relationship to maintain its inherent health and sustainability, the woman's timely recognition of her own intrinsic value is paramount. Authentic love is not a contest of self-sacrifice. It is a meticulously balanced exchange where both partners consistently invest in each other's well-being and the relational dynamic. Men characteristically accept care unconditionally only from their mothers, a pattern established in childhood due to the consistent experience of maternal unconditional affection. This specific dynamic, however, does not translate effectively or sustainably into adult romantic relationships. If a man consistently receives everything without the requirement of personal effort, his appreciation for it rapidly diminishes. When a woman invests significantly in a man without reciprocal actions from his side, he interprets this not as an unequivocal expression of love, but rather as an affirmation of his own inherent importance or elevated status. He experiences no cognitive imperative to consider reciprocal action, as the provision of care and attention is an automatic, unwavering occurrence. For a man to genuinely value a woman, he must perceive her as a distinct individual in personality, transcending the role of a mere source of comfort or convenience. A woman's role should extend beyond passive giving. She must actively inspire the man towards personal growth and development, effectively demonstrating that her attention and care are not indiscriminately bestowed entitlements. An authentically growth-oriented man inherently seeks self-improvement, and in the presence of a woman he deems worthy, he experiences a potent desire to elevate his own character and capabilities. He accords respect to the woman who not only provides supportive affirmation, but also constructively challenges him, thereby motivating continuous personal evolution. If a woman permits a man to acquire all benefits without necessitating personal effort, he perceives no intrinsic rationale for self-modification or advancement. While he may superficially derive satisfaction from the arrangement, such relationships typically fail to engender profound enthusiasm or genuine emotional investment within him. The man must internalize the understanding that the woman values herself intrinsically and is not predisposed to indiscriminately dispense her care merely because of his presence. If he fails to exert reciprocal effort on her behalf, it logically follows that he has not merited the full spectrum of what she is prepared to offer. A woman who demonstrates the capacity to strategically disengage and cease unreciprocated investment commands his respect. He thereby grasps that her affection is not an unconditional gratuity, but a valuable asset that necessitates ongoing earning and cultivation. When a woman actively inspires a man, rather than merely shielding him from challenges, he experiences an enhanced sense of self-assurance and personal accountability. He then comprehends that his companion is not merely a nurturing individual, but rather a catalyst for his own aspiration towards self-improvement. Upon a woman's realization of her inherent strength and the transcendence of her fear of losing a male partner, her relational paradigm undergoes a fundamental transformation. She ceases to exhibit clinginess or to strive for appeasement at any cost. Instead, she evolves into an individual whom a man actively desires to pursue and earn. If a man demonstrates no inclination to invest personal effort, it definitively indicates his unpreparedness for a genuinely committed relationship. A woman must fully internalize that her intrinsic value is not quantified by the magnitude of her sacrifices, but rather by the integrity and substance of her individual identity. A man values the woman whose presence catalyzes his personal betterment, rather than the one who merely streamlines his existence. This underscores the critical importance of not merely harboring affection, but also of allowing the man to concretely express his love through demonstrable actions. When a man perceives himself to be in the company of a strong and self-sufficient woman, his appreciation for her elevates to an entirely distinct qualitative level. He comprehends that she is not merely a companion, but a pivotal individual whose absence would significantly diminish the richness and fulfillment of his life experience. A woman achieves genuine value when she consistently inspires a man towards self-improvement and the pursuit of greater aspirations. This inspiration manifests not solely through nurturing behaviors, but crucially through the active stimulation of his personal and developmental growth. When a man observes that a woman actively supports his ambitions and objectives, his respect for her intensifies considerably. She transcends mere need satisfaction. She actively assists him in cultivating greater strength and self-confidence. Into such a woman, he is genuinely prepared to invest his efforts, time, and focused attention. A man who genuinely loves and respects a woman inherently desires to exert effort for her, rather than merely consuming her care without reciprocation. If he internalizes the necessity of expending effort to retain such a woman in his life, his respect for her progressively increases. He comprehends that this is not merely a relationship from which he derives comfort, but a collaborative partnership necessitating mutual development from both individuals. A critical metric of a woman's perceived value is the man's reciprocal investment. When a woman exclusively gives without the man's reciprocal engagement, the relationship becomes unilaterally imbalanced, and the woman's perceived value systematically declines. A woman who consistently assumes responsibility for all tasks on behalf of the force fails to present him with any constructive challenge, leading him to cease valuing her as an individual and instead perceiving her as a convenient assistant rather than an equitable partner. A man genuinely begins to value a woman when she does not simply acquiesce to his behaviors, but rather actively incites him towards greater responsibility and attentiveness. Such relationships evolve into truly fulfilling partnerships, predicated on both individuals investing in each other's developmental trajectory. When a man perceives a woman as an individual who facilitates his personal betterment, he recognizes a value in her that extends significantly beyond mere physical attractiveness. He thus perceives her as a legitimate life partner. If his engagement is solely extractive, receiving without reciprocation, his intrinsic interest inevitably wanes. However, if the woman actively cultivates an environment conducive to his growth, he endeavors to remain present and to demonstrate his full potential. A man invariably senses when a woman transcends simple need fulfillment and instead inspires him towards becoming an improved version of himself. This dynamic forges a robust, enduring connection wherein both partners hold inherent and mutual significance. A woman's investment in a relationship should not be unilaterally gratuitous. Her contributions must serve as a direct stimulus for the man to comprehend his own imperative for reciprocal growth and investment. When both partners exhibit a mutual aspiration for betterment, the relationship achieves a state of comprehensive fulfillment and enduring health. A woman must refrain from indiscriminately dispersing her energy and affection, particularly towards individuals who demonstrate no reciprocal effort. If she consistently invests in the relationship while the man solely receives, his appreciation for her care will inevitably diminish over time. It is crucial to remember that authentic love and attention are fundamentally reciprocal in nature. Establishing clear personal boundaries is paramount to prevent the male partner from exploiting her generosity. A woman must possess the discernment to differentiate between actions that signify genuine commitment and those that indicate a purely consumptive, non-investing dynamic. Should a man exhibit interest solely when it aligns with his convenience, while failing to undertake meaningful actions, this constitutes a significant red flag. Relationships must be constructed upon a foundation of mutual reciprocity, wherein both partners actively demonstrate care and concern for one another. If a woman consistently perceives that her contributions exceed those she receives, it warrants critical reflection upon the extent to which the man genuinely values her presence in his life. If he consistently demonstrates an unwillingness to invest, an absence of initiative, or a failure to perform meaningful actions, it signifies he is not a suitable partner. Authentic affection is demonstrably revealed through actions, not merely through vacuous verbal assertions. A self-respecting woman will not dissipate her vital energy on an individual who perceives her solely as a convenient appendage. It is imperative to observe the man's behavioral response to established boundaries. If he respects these boundaries and actively endeavors towards relational equilibrium, this indicates a positive and healthy dynamic. Conversely, if he consistently seeks to extract more than he is willing to contribute, it provides substantial grounds to reevaluate the viability of such a relationship. A woman should not harbor fear of losing a man who demonstrably fails to value her. An individual genuinely committed to a partnership will exert proactive effort, rather than merely exploiting benefits acquired without exertion. Ceasing to permit exploitation signifies a profound realization of one's inherent value and the courage to unequivocally demand reciprocity. A woman must actively select a partner who will invest in her, rather than one who passively accepts her care as an inherent entitlement. If a man is unwilling to invest, it is conclusive evidence that he is not the partner she genuinely requires. Among the most prevalent relational errors is the toleration of disrespectful or detrimental treatment. Women frequently disregard early warning signs, harboring an often unfounded hope that relational dynamics will spontaneously improve over time. They consciously overlook disrespect and rationalize indifference, self-persuading that the male partner is merely experiencing a transient, difficult period. A man who fails to demonstrate respect for a woman during the nascent stages of a relationship is highly unlikely to spontaneously develop it later. A direct correlation exists. Increased female tolerance directly correlates with an escalation in the man's permissible level of dismissive or contemptuous behavior. A woman who passively accepts emotional coldness, inattentiveness, or even overt rudeness inadvertently signals to the man that such treatment is permissible and will be tolerated. A significant number of women persist in relationships under the expectation that the man will undergo a fundamental change. They operate under the misapprehension that an increased provision of care, support, and affection will finally compel him to comprehend her indispensable value. In practical terms, however, the inverse often holds. The more diligently a woman strives, the less necessity the man perceives for personal alteration or effort. If he observes the woman's readiness to undertake all actions for his benefit, he consequently begins to perceive her as a convenient adjunct to his existence, rather than an equitable partner. He experiences no imperative to actively pursue her, nor does he harbor fear of her potential loss, due to the ingrained certainty of her perpetual availability. A woman who overexerts herself effectively recedes into the background, becoming an indistinguishable part of the relational scenery. Her presence becomes unremarkable, her existence within the relationship taken for granted. The man perceives no mystery in her, experiences no compulsion to invest, as all his needs are met without any personal exertion. Such relationships are intrinsically predisposed to culminate in profound disappointment. To circumvent this trajectory, a woman must internalize that relational value is not generated through self-sacrifice, but through mutual reciprocity. The man's level of investment must, at a minimum, parallel her own. Solely under these conditions can a relationship attain a state of health and sustainable equilibrium. A self-respecting woman will not attempt to retain a man who fails to demonstrate initiative. She harbors no fear of solitude, possessing the profound understanding that authentic affection does not necessitate continuous validation or perpetual self-abnegation. To construct healthy relationships and avoid self-dissolution, it is paramount to rigorously preserve one's sense of self-dignity and to refrain from compromising core values for trivial concessions. A woman must fundamentally comprehend that her intrinsic worth is not contingent upon the volume of her actions for a man, but rather upon the degree to which she respects herself and upholds her personal boundaries. Self-sufficiency fundamentally entails not merging entirely with a partner, but rather persistently cultivating one's individual identity, interests, and aspirations. A woman who possesses a distinct and independent life inherently becomes more appealing, as she does not project the impression that her personal happiness is solely contingent upon her male partner. To value oneself intrinsically is to recognize that love and attention are not outcomes of self-sacrifice. If a man genuinely respects a woman, he will not perceive her care as an inherent entitlement. Instead, he will actively appreciate her contributions and reciprocate them. It is crucial to select a man who authentically respects a woman, rather than one who merely exploits her nurturing capacities. Relationships must be predicated on principles of equality, rather than on a woman's continuous efforts to retain a man by fulfilling his every desire. If a man is unprepared for an egalitarian partnership, efforts to earn his commitment are ill-advised. A woman compelled to perpetually validate her worth will ultimately experience a profound erosion of self-respect. Authentic relationships are constructed not upon unilateral sacrifices, but upon mutual interest and engagement. A man who genuinely loves will not permit a woman to forfeit her individuality for his sake. On the contrary, he will actively inspire her to fully embody her authentic self. There should be no apprehension in asserting personal boundaries. If a man respects a woman, he will not demand self-sacrificial behavior from her. Instead, he will actively support her aspirations. A woman who demonstrates no fear of departing from a relationship where she is not valued unequivocally signals her inherent deservingness of respect. She will not remain in a partnership solely due to a fear of solitude. Instead, she will choose an individual prepared to invest in her with the same commitment she dedicates to him. To prevent self-loss within a relationship, it is essential to remember that love is not an endeavor to appease, but an egalitarian partnership. A woman's role is not to be convenient, it is to be loved and respected. Healthy relationships contain no space for self-dissolution or transformation into a utilitarian service provider. True affection is built upon reciprocity, mutual respect, and an equilibrium of effort. When a woman internalizes her intrinsic value, she attracts a man who is prepared to invest, care, and grow alongside her. It is inadvisable to attempt to earn love by demonstrating loyalty through ceaseless sacrifices. An authentic man values a woman not for her capacity to appease, but for her strength, boundary integrity, and self-sufficiency. If he is unwilling to invest in the relationship, it definitively indicates he is not the necessary partner. Prioritize self-care, cultivate self-respect, and select partners who genuinely value your essence.